Welcome back to another episode of Coffee with April. What we want to do here is walk you through what I did when I competed in the World Brewers Championship in Boston. So most of you already probably know that I changed recipes from the first round to the second round. And I just want to show you and walk you through the recipe I did in the actual final. So from the first round to the final, we increased our scores by 4 points, leading up to 86, which was the highest point in this year's World Championship. Now, a big part of that was our change in recipe, and the change in recipe came from us realizing that the coffee just wasn't tasting good enough. So we used April Brewer. The April Brewer is a brewer that we designed ourselves to basically maximize the taste of our coffee. There's a few interesting features of it. First of all, it's a flatbed brewer. Second of all, which we can see here, it's a large hole in the bottom of the brewer. Now, this large hole is allowing us to control the flow rate in a different way from other traditional flatbed brewers. Now, first of all, why in the world use a flatbed brewer and not, for example, a V60 or a cone brewer that has been again and again proven itself to score very, very well in the World Championship? Well, it's basically based on a lot of testing. And this testing, should be noted, is not done scientifically, as very little science in coffee actually is. But it is done over a very long period of time where we basically be comparing a cone brewer, different cone brewers and different flatbed brewers. And what we find continuously is that the flatbed brewers generates, depending on roast style, a slightly better balance in the cup, as well as a much more better harmony between different temperatures, so going from hot to cold. I talk a lot about how important the cold temperature is when it comes to competing, and this is something that we focused a lot on. Now, I'm telling you depending on roast profile because we believe that depending on how your coffee is roasted, different attributes will come out with different brewers. So the flatbed brewer, the April Brewer that we created, was an opportunity for us to roast our style, which is often considerably lighter than most other competition coffees would be, but still generate the same balance and the same sweetness. So it was very much created for a specific roast style, which is something you should keep in mind. Now, we're gonna walk you through the recipe, exactly how we did it. So, few things to keep in mind in the beginning. So the filter is pre-wetted right before we go on stage, making about 15 minutes from rinse to when I'm start to brewing. Now there's some scientific data saying that you need to basically re-rinse your coffee after 10 minutes, which is showing how the paper is reacting when it dries out. Now, our experience is that this does not affect the taste negatively, so that's why I'm not re-rinsing again. I also want to keep everything clean and structured. Secondly, most importantly, and this is not a roasting video, so I won't be talking about it too much, but our coffee was roasted 6 hours before competition. It was ground 45 minutes before going on stage, approximately 1 hour before it was actually used. Now, grinding this early is based on two things. One, when did I roast the coffee? 6 hours before. I needed to force it to the gas properly. Secondly, a coffee that has been ground for a longer period of time until brewing is going to give you a flow rate that is a lot more consistent in between multiple brews. So if you have inconsistency problems, you checked your pouring, you know your grinder is perfect, then just let the coffee rest a bit and you're going to see that that extra CO2 leaves the coffee and you'll be a lot more consistent. Now, we're gonna walk you through here exactly how we're pouring. So I'm dosing 14 grams of coffee, and we're alternating between a circle pour and a center pour. The circle pour in this case increases balance and sweetness because it makes the extraction a lot more uniform, right? the center pour is increasing the flavor intensity because I'm going to agitate the coffee a lot. And we created a pattern of pouring that generates a harmony, focusing again on temperature change between hot to cold, right? Important to notice is that each pour is done in an equal amount of time, basically being 8 seconds. So the circle pour is considerably slower than the center pour. Now we're going to start with a 30-gram circle pour. And we're going to let this sit for 30 seconds. After that, we're again going to alternate between the 70-gram center pour, 30-gram circle pour, 70-gram center pour, shooting for a total brew time of about 3 minutes. Now, when we created the April Brewer, a lot of the focus was looking at how can we control the flow rate to generate higher quality flavor notes. So what we wanted to do was to generate a flow rate that would be faster than a traditional flatbed brewer. But it's not going to be as fast as a V60 because doing that is going to risk having a slightly unbalanced flavor note as the coffee cools down. So we're coming up towards our second pour here, which is going to be done, or third pour, sorry, which is going to be done at 110. And that again is going to be a circle pour. So we're doing the 30-gram circle pour, which I basically overshot here with 2 grams. And that might be okay in when you're in your bar or when you're doing videos like this. When you're competing, you're not allowed to, right? Because someone is going to watch you and make sure to basically score you based on this. So you need to be very, very accurate, both with the amount of grams you're pouring and the amount of time it takes you to pour. So at 140, and I'm going to make my last pour, going up to 200. So we're actually finishing here between 199 and 200, so the scale is moving up and back, up and back. And I would recommend doing that because 1 gram accuracy is going to be enough to not get a bad score from the head judge in terms of workflow, but still proven to be kind of within the specs. So that's more or less okay to do. They will, however, basically for sure score you down if you end up doing multiple pours, right? So you do 1 long pour and you need to break that up because you didn't pour enough, then that's not going to be a good thing. So what we're looking at here now is basically a total brew time of 3 minutes, and brew times has often been discussed in this competition. The trend is definitely to brew a lot faster. And the reason why I want to brew faster is, I think, often related to the actual roast that you're working with. So the darker the coffee, the faster the flow rate, the shorter the brew time, because there's definitely things in the coffee you don't want to extract. Now, when we're brewing, we want to extract as much as we can. So we're making sure to have a longer brew time, which generates a better quality to the body and the structure in the coffee. So we think a lot about the tactile qualities when it comes to these kind of coffees, especially when competition. So one of the notes that I got in my score sheet that the judges really liked was that the body was light, but a very, very high quality, right? So a lot of that is based on the April Brewer and how we structured our pouring, because that really generates a harmony in all temperatures. A few more details about the brew, which is good to know. In the final, I actually used a Ditting Sweet Lab grinder as well, grinding at 8.4 to be precise, for those of you that wonder. We went from a Comandante grinder in the first round to a Ditting grinder in the second round. The main reason for that was because we just needed to grind faster backstage to be able to dial in the coffee. And it turns out that the Ditting is just a way faster grinder, right? So not necessarily pitching different qualities here, just pitching that we were more efficient and faster using the distant grinder for that specific case. Now that was about it. This was how I brewed in the final of the World Brewers Championship 2019 using the April brewer, which we're working very hard on launching very soon. So later this year it's going to be available. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, thoughts, please just write it down here. Thank you again.